So welcome back, everyone. Let's start again with a short prostration. Homage to our teacher Shakyamuni Buddha. Homage to Manjushri for his wisdom and courageous knowledge. Homage to the great benefactor, our lineage masters. With all of your kindness and love, let your wisdom's shining light clear the darkness of my ignorance once and for all. Grant me, I pray, the intelligence, the brilliance to understand the scriptures, both the word and the treatises. Okay, let's spend the next hour or so, hour and a half, with a little bodhicitta, with mind for benefit all the sentient beings to continue our study. So we're still in chapter 2, talking about impermanence of life. And we already know this chapter contains 7 outlines. And we are still on the 5th point, which is the other examples of impermanence. So I think all of us know this book. This is a book study for Word of My Perfect Teacher by Patrul Rinpoche, and this is interpreted by Khenpo Sodargye. So okay, I need to adjust. Last week, I was not here, thanks to Oliver, who must have done a good work for lesson 35. Still on the same point and the impermanence of life through other examples. The main point for last lesson was talking about the different ways to observe impermanence. So specifically, I talked about whatever is built is impermanent and is bound to collapse. The second point is that all friendship and enmity is ephemeral. The third point is good fortune and deprivation never lasts forever. So for this lesson, we're going to continue on the third point, good fortune and deprivation never lasts forever. So overview of this lesson. So like usual, Khenpo give a pre-lecture instructions, emphasize on how important it is when we practice impermanence. Impermanence, we must see through this life. So don't pursue all those worldly meaningless things. And then he also emphasized when we practice, we must practice in tune with the Dharma, because only when we practice in tune with the Dharma, we can actually benefit ourselves and actually promote Dharma. Otherwise, it's actually damaging. So, and Khenpo again emphasized the practice stage by stage with the initial focus on preliminaries. And he has been talking about this over and over and over again. So, you know, we all the teachers know how stubborn the students can be. So if you keep talking about it, finally you may be able to hammer a little sense into this stubborn brain. So again, today, for going over all the points, all different ways to observe impermanence. So we first learned whatever is born is bound to die. And then we also start talking about whatever is stored up is bound to run out. And whatever comes together is bound to come apart. Whatever buildings are constructed are bound to collapse. And then we have this next point, whatever is built is impermanent and is bound to collapse. I think the first one is talking about buildings, constructed sense. The second one is more referred to wealth, social status, all those built up things, like more like fame and wealth, all those other things. So the next point is that all of the friendship and the enmity is ephemeral. So when we go through all these items, when we go analyze it, we know they are all true. And for that is from the past lessons. And for today, we're going to continue good fortune and deprivation never last forever. And we'll study the last point, excellence and mediocrity are impermanent too. So some people may look like very bright at the time, but then they may fall. And some ordinary people look dull at the moment and they may rise. So then there is a summary of the entire session. So literally it says nothing from the highest states of existence down to the lowest hills has ever a scrap of permanence or stability. Everything is subject to change. Everything waxes and wanes. All right, this is the overview of actually a little bit of the overview of the entire meditation on impermanence through other examples here. As normal, we'll ask someone to read it for us. We'll go from Vincent first. Vincent, could you please?
Okay, sure. Yes, thank you. Pre-lecture instructions, see through this life. If we want to become true practitioners, we must first see through this life. Of course, lip service is useless. You must find ways to realize deeply that things desired by the worldly people, such as fame, status, wealth, happiness, are like a dream, an illusion, a bubble, and a mirage, which do not bear any actual meanings. Knowing this will free us from attachment to this life and result in confidence in dharma. Therefore, it is important for both monks and lay practitioners to diligently practice this dharma of impermanence. Some people think they have been practicing for more than a month or for over a year, but in fact, this is not enough. You must practice for years and years. Only such continuous practice will warrant true understanding of dharma in your self-continuum. Dilgo Yensei Rinpoche always carried the words of my perfect teacher with him wherever he went in his life, and that he read a few pages every morning after his practice. Dilgo Yensei Rinpoche is recognized as a great achiever and a great yogi in Tibet in India. A great master like him valued the words of my perfect teacher and would not consider it to be just a basic dharma or a beginner's dharma, and then later followers like us should never intend to neglect it.
But I have a question for you. So there are a few metaphors here, analogy, like a dream, an illusion, a bubble, and a mirage. Talking compared to fame and the status and the wealth. What do you think that's really like a dream and illusion? Because fame may actually bring you wealth and you can enjoy it. So do you think it's really like a dream?
I think that it's your beliefs at the time, what you think is real may disappear. I think that's why impermanence is, why we're studying this.
Great, thank you. Great interpretation, yeah. Yeah, it's impermanent. It may appear right now. This is a good understanding. It may appear right now and appear like it's touchable and you can feel it, but then when it's gone, when it's gone, it is really then a dream. Think about yesterday. What did we have done yesterday? What did we ate yesterday? What do you think? What do you feel like right now about the food? Like it's a great food, like great meal yesterday. You cannot catch it. You cannot hold it. It's just in your memory. Like memory is a dream. I think this is the point I want to make here. In this one, we need to see through this life. Just like we got all those things as a dream, as an illusion, a bubble, and you know the soap bubble, not very sturdy. could appear like a very beautiful and mirage. So all these analogies have been used very frequently in Buddhism to refer to this physical world that we can sense by our sensory organs. So any questions over here? No? Okay, we'll move on then. The second part of the pre-lecture instruction. Next one is Tashi. Tashi, can you read?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Yeah. Pre-lecture instruction, how to practice. In fact, this practice method is not difficult at all. You can practice it. You can practice it via either shamatha meditation or analytical meditation. What is analytical meditation? It means to open the book, read every page instruction and study related to impermanence of life, and then contemplate on them and decide whether it is true. In the end, you will realize that it is indeed very true because everything is ever-changing and unreliable, and nothing is eternal. In this way, you will feel that the whole samsara is not at all reliable as is concluded by some great achievers. A feeling of great sadness and disappointment will arise as if you are deceived by a close friend, then so that you will have no interest in anything in that world anymore. It's a very good state of realization of your practice if you can develop such renunciation. For those who preach Tibetan Buddhism, it is also better to follow a step-by-step approach so that others do not easily develop wrong views. After all, ordinary people are inclined to have bad conceptual thoughts, and it takes a certain process to change them. Only by following a step-by-step process can people gradually develop appropriate personal experiences and eventually have the chance to attain enlightenment. As a result, it is essential to attention to the preliminary practice, which should not only be verbal exercise, but a practice of either analytical or shamatha meditation for each instruction. If you succeed in the practice of the common preliminaries, you will surely not easily retrogress. Advertise in the future journal of practice, like the disciples of Yuhoko Jodawa Choni Rinpoche. I'm sorry.
I cannot pronounce that name either. So, would you mind to explain? I know you do good meditation. Shamatha meditation versus analytical meditation.
Honestly, I'm really unable to. I'm familiar with the terms, but I'm really unable to explain, in detail a right way, Yeah, but I know what little bit about what's that meaning and the difference.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. This entire page is talking about the Khenpo is teaching us how to practice. Okay, practice like impermanence of life. And he mentioned two ways, shamatha meditation versus analytic meditation. So he explained analytic meditation very well right here in this passage. It says, just open this book, The Words of My Perfect Teacher, and read every piece of instructions and the stories related to impermanence of life. And this book has lots of stories as examples. We all learned quite a few, right? Just read the book and contemplate on them. And then you analyze this like in your own mind, see if all these teachings are real, are true or not true. So then you come to your own conclusion, right? This is your analytic meditation. You can do it by just reading the book and do your analysis in your mind, or you can do it on a seat, on your cushion, and just like because without the book, without reading the book, you may forget about the stories, forget about what is exactly said in the book. With the book, you can easily refer back to the book and think about it. But on the cushion, you can also meditate just in this exactly same way. So in this way, your mind is always been active, like doing your own analysis and draw your own conclusions. This is analytic meditation. And then shamatha meditation is a little different. It's more like abiding meditation. So once you after your analytic meditation, and then you kind of reach your own conclusion, like for example, when you're on the cushion, and then you try to keep that in that mindset, in that abiding status. You would say, let's say, I agree that this life is impermanent. So you reach the conclusion, you maintain that abiding status, like so you don't need to go analyze anymore, just stay in that status. And try not to make your mind wander everywhere. Just keep on that one thought. This life is impermanent. So that is what it's talking about here, shamatha meditation. Of course, in other status, there is slightly different meaning. But over here, this is a method of Nyingma Rinpoche always talk about analytic meditation and shamatha meditation. So Nyingma Rinpoche's suggestion is like once we lose that concentration, like you lose that abiding status, you go back to your analytic meditation again. So it's just take turns to do your analytic meditation and the shamatha meditation, and then just keep doing that. Take turns doing that. So that's a way for you to contemplate all those meanings. The entire book you can practice this way. So I think this is a very important piece of instructions here, just this one passage. So in the end, you do, once you have this actually very deep understanding, that it's not going to be changed by anybody, by anything, and that's your own realization status. Okay. So like if you firmly believe that everything is so impermanent and that there's no need to go chase all those bubble-like wealth, and then that's your own realization, and behave on your own behave, you will find out you pay less attention to those extrovert stuff. So so Khenpo also says like a short time is not enough. We need to do over and over again, step-by-step process, because we all have all those bad conceptual thoughts, because this is the habit of samsara, right? In the samsara, we chase all the outside things, and so we'll have all those kind of conceptual thoughts. without go analyze it. And then, so that's why we have to put the put our learning process starting with preliminaries. Yeah, any questions? And this Rinpoche, this monk here, he's a modern one. He's I think he's not alive anymore, but he was alive in the 80s, I would think. There were lots of stories. He was famous in around that Soda area, and Khenpo talk about him a lot. He's highly achieved. Any questions over here about the practice? Okay, so the method is all here, and we learned, and the principles we have learned. We just need to go to do it. All right. So next one, Kate.
Sure. Good fortune and deprivation never last forever. There is such thinking. It looks like that some people do not suffer from any pain after they commit heinous sins such as killing. On the contrary, they own prosperous businesses and live happy lives. Does this invalidate the law of karma that what goes around comes around? It does not. With a careful observation, you will know that the non-virtuous causes they are currently creating do not necessarily ripen immediately, while the fruit of happiness they are enjoying at the current time is the effect of the past virtuous deeds. Therefore, there is absolutely no mistake about cause and effect. If a person accumulates wealth by creating negative karma, although he gains pleasure temporarily, he will eventually suffer boundless pain. For instance, long ago in the kingdom of Aparantaka, the king ruled the country non-virtuously. Because of the blessings of his past lives, there was a rain of grain lasting 7 days, followed by a rain of clothes for another 7 days, and a rain of precious jewels for 7 days more. People enjoyed all the possessions that came down from the sky and lived happily. Subsequently, due to ripening of negative karmas, there was a rain of earth which buried the entire population, and of everyone died and was reborn in the lower realms. In addition, theories of past and future lives documented a story. A professional chicken farmer sold his chickens in large quantity to chicken dealers to be slaughtered for profit. Later, his wife gave birth to a daughter whose hands were directly attached to her chest and looked like chicken claws. The child's intestines were exposed outside of her body, looking extremely horrifying. The incident was also reported by Sichuan TV, and many people have witnessed it. By the above-mentioned stories, it is evident that if one's happiness and prosperity is gained through creating negative karma, it will not last, and all sorts of suffering will inevitably appear.
Thank you very much. Any comments on this?
I thought just the first time I read that story, it was a little graphic, I guess, kind of shocking to think about it in that way.
Mm-hmm.
But just in general, I think we frequently hear about people enjoying a seemingly happy life, even though they're maybe achieving that happiness through unvirtuous deeds. But it's an interesting point rather, that the blessings are maybe coming from past virtuous deeds. So I thought it was an interesting way to think about that, instead of focusing on asking why they're enjoying what they're enjoying currently.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of people have the same confusion. Like, look, these people are doing all these bad things, but they have lived a happy life. So when they have a happy life, that's from the past virtues, because whatever karma you create right now usually doesn't ripe instantly, because like we know when we plant a seed, the seed will need time to germinate and grow, right? And then if it's a seed for like soybean, corn, you need the entire season to grow. Same is for the karma. When you created the course, it's like you planted the seed, and it does not usually have the immediate effect. So that's how karmas work, but there are exceptions. So if it's extremely huge, like negative karma, how do I say? What's the example? Let's say this farmer, okay, here in the chicken farmer, that is because it's like a long term. His family is on that's family business, and then it's lots of chicken and all that. Those kind of become kind of like a huge severe cause, negative karma. So so they got the effect come like right in this lifetime. And there is another question, huh? They say the karma here in this story, the karma is actually created by the parents, right? And but then you see the child is suffering, but there are many, there are also more explanation to be done, because usually whatever karma you created only comes back to yourself. So your karma normally do not go to your child, because we are responsible for individually responsible. This child came to the family because the child himself already had that karma. So then when all the causes come together, so it appears like just like this. Does that make sense for everyone?
Yeah, that makes sense. I actually had that exact same question when I first read that also, just that it didn't quite make sense, but the way that you just explained it, it does make more sense.
Yeah, okay, thank you. All right, okay, Aaron, any question?
Yeah, like I know this is a talk about impermanence, but like these passages, like especially the one with the kingdom of Aparantaka, just the idea of sort of collective consequences, where an entire society or an entire group of people either suffer negative or positive consequences. Like that's a concept that is personally very difficult for me to understand.
Okay. So why is it so for the entire population? It's not just one person, right? Is that your question?
Yeah, you know, like yeah, when I think about that, like I think about for instance, not to at all get political, but on January 6th, no, but on January 6th, or okay, on January 6th, or with like Black Lives Matter protest, or you know, that type of thing, people with a certain belief and you know are drawn together. So that is understandable. But those are segments within a broader population, as opposed to, do you know what I mean? Like that whole the idea of like things that happen, like you know, like the Holocaust or transatlantic slavery, like those collective events are they're just hard for me to understand.
Very good question. Thank you for raising that question. There are explanations behind that. We know we have individual karma, like whatever we did, it's our own karma. But then there is a what is that called? Oliver helps me if I'm wrong. Shared karma, common karma, or
yeah, it can be collective.
Collective karma, yeah.
Yeah.
Can you give more explanation? Like a Holocaust.
Yeah, I think for Aaron's question is also again how much we like what's the group, right? It's not vision, but the scope, right? Because usually probably the way we understand is this is the earth and then the population of people that we know from scientific research or whatever, right? We're taught. But I think putting into different scope, and then whatever happens to the whole country can be very small also. I think that's probably one of the reasons when Aaron said that's hard to understand, or maybe take that idea. Aaron, you can turn up your mic. We'll just do a discussion here. If I want to add, one time the people asked Sichen Lodru Khenpo why people, like human being, see things the same way. For example, a red color to most people is a red color, and then any of the colors we have an agreement. The answer is pretty non-Buddhist, actually, very scientific. It's because biologically we're the same structure. But that's also, to me, that's also Buddhist, because if we are under the same karma, our vision, the structure of our eyes, all those areas, right, the lenses are just the same. That's all under the same type of karma also, right? And then I think before we had this discussion, if there's other realms, somebody from Asura realm or somebody from the hungry ghost realm, they apparently, not the same structure. So they see things differently. The water in our eyes is, I think in the hungry ghost realm is, all those the dirty, filthy liquid kind of thing. See, Aaron, if that answers your question, or you can discuss.
Yeah, I think it's maybe a frame of reference, like that's like maybe the scope, as you mentioned, the scope of it is what I'm not getting at this point. Yeah, maybe in the grand, yeah. It's like the example that I gave of, people of a certain mindset or attracted to a certain type of energy, they will congregate together. Like we see that happening. So maybe, as atrocious as it sounds, that they like this, the negative karma that resulted in this, what we see as an atrocity, in the grand scheme of things, isn't, I don't even want to say isn't as big as it is, but it's still in the scope of the world population that can happen. I don't know. It's just a hard concept for. I think it's just my frame of reference. I just need to understand it better. So I was just sort of getting an idea of like individual karma is very easy for me to understand, but like that sort of, when an entire group of people, especially where it's over, hundreds of years, is a difficult concept. And even that idea of hundreds of years is relative, that's nothing in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, I think I'm thinking another example of there's a big earthquake back to 1978. I was about a few hundred miles from it, so there was not too big of I think no death toll, even not too much of damage of property. But back in that center, we do have friends still here. I have one classmate, and today when we study the Buddhism, there's a lady in San Diego. She was at the center. 300,000 died, right? If you put into a smaller scope, for example, one building that's not really good quality, couldn't stand, right? If you one part of that whole building, a few hundred people easily, nobody right? If you happen to be the one that survived, you probably could see none of the others in the same building, right? That's few hundred people. For her, actually, in her eyes too, that's a big collective karma too. Of course, tragedy, the same time, but put to the scope, that's everybody, right? That's almost everybody in the city, kind of thing. But it's, I mean, maybe it's not surprise. That story, I don't know if that story is exactly right in that scope of people. Everybody just died because of the rain of the dirt. But in put to that city of that earthquake, there's still a couple of survivors, right? My two classmates, this one and back to the school, they survived. There's still some exceptions, right? I don't know, like the Titanic, maybe same thing.
Okay.
So
Thanks.
would it also be kind of like, because all those people enjoyed the possessions and lived happily and were grounded in like the worldly, I guess, pleasantries of life, that's why they experienced the common karma, if you will? I don't know if that's a good way to look at it, but it's kind of coming to mind just based off the story in the meeting.
Go
Okay,
ahead.
let me try a story, the Buddha's family story. Okay, Buddha from this country, and there was once there's a war between his country and another country. The other country's king come to kind of wiped out his clan. So and then there were stories like some arahats try to save some psychic children, right? And was not able to. And then later, the Buddha explained to his disciples and followers, say why there was that war. He said the war was because once the Sakya clan was like a village, people live in a village. In a village, and then they killed fish in a pond or in a lake somewhere like that, and all the fish. So they killed the fish, they ate the fish, and now this entire pond of the fish reincarnated into those other countries' people, and now they are doing this revenge. So this is what Buddha explained. So why there was this war and nobody was saved in his clan, because it's just the karma repays. So that kind of explains the war, and it's just like they share the karma and the things like that, I think.
Yeah, so maybe they have collectively, it is possible, quite possible, these beings collectively committed something together also. I know this is not official, nothing in the sutra, but talking about the Holocaust, I think Nanking was many people accept, right? There was also similar numbers, 300,000 people were killed. Well, it is said that these were like people eating fish or things like that too. But again, this is unofficial, but it is quite possible. Karma itself is quite complicated, and even sometimes the enlightened first level of bodhisattvas, all the way up to maybe 8, it's hard to explain all the details. Only to that Buddha level, Buddhahood level, is able to see all these connections, detailed connections. But again, roughly, it just could be that reason. I don't know the pleasure tree phone. You understand what that term is?
What tree?
I think Kat said when the reason of the collective, is it because of?
Oh, because of this story.
Yeah, I remember I heard a pleasure tree or something like that. Kat said, if I don't know if
No, I was just saying just that they all enjoyed the worldly possessions, so that they were all kind of, let's say, I guess in a way, guilty of partaking in the worldly pleasures, if you
worldly
will.
pleasure. Yeah.
Right. And so the kind of using, I guess, the example, of the Holocaust. I mean, there are people that maybe weren't necessarily doing anything wrong, but they also weren't doing anything about it. So like, because we're all aware of the general issue going on, and I'm just kind of generalizing, I guess you could apply it to any conflict. And so collectively as people, the lack of inaction leads to usually these type of conflicts, because over time we all collectively either close our eyes to it, and some people obviously go out and actually commit these heinous crimes, but a lot of us are aware of what's happening and just don't take any action to resolve it or try to make it any better.
Yeah, I think the future classes will be studying the type of karmas, but again, it's roughly some actions result in like a bad environment, right? You live in a very, again, maybe next to filthy different things, or some are just come back as a result, like a plant. You plant the seeds, come back and the result. Some came back as a habit, right? If you, for example, I don't know, you like something in the previous life or lives, you still do the same thing. Or if somebody, like even the Arhat, when they used to be monkey, there's that habit was so deep, even when they realize as an Arhat, they still have somewhat a little bit of habit of those monkeys. I think the ones that it's come back is the one as seeds, it ripen. Usually killing end up with being killed multiple times. It said, I think it's 500 times. If, for example, if you kill a life, you get 500 times being killed in future lives. And of course, this is not as like the strict math, because the mechanism also with is mind. When the mind, there is a mind way of changing it too, which is the purification, cleansing, like the 100 syllable mantra that we play each time. That helps, will change that dynamic also. But usually it's like if somebody is killed, most of the cases it should be there was a killing before in the previous lives. These people, I think, not necessarily commit together, but it's likely together. Yeah, again, there's the type of karma we're kind of sure there's a trend, but as for very specific, it is very hard to say.
Yeah, for individual case, it's difficult to say, but we can get the general idea. All right. Let's move on. Next one. Who is the next one? Joe.
No use trying to control the ever-changing happiness and suffering. On the contrary, if one lives a hard life and suffer for the sake of practicing the virtuous dharma, the suffering and hardship will not last either, and he will meet with brightness in the end. Thus, you should not be particularly concerned when you encounter some adversities or difficulties during your practice. In fact, it is no use trying, full of hopes and fears, to control such ever-changing happiness and suffering or hold on to them. When you are happy, there must be pain behind it. When you are miserable, there will also be joy coming along. Hence, happiness and suffering are inseparable. There is no eternal suffering nor eternal happiness. You should follow in the footsteps of the conquerors of the past to leave all the comforts, wealth, and pleasures of this world behind, like so much spittle in the dust. You should accept courageously whatever hardships you have to suffer for the sake of the Dharma. As it is recognized that the Dharma of transcending the samsara of birth and death can be found only in Buddhism. It is impossible to attain effortlessly without experiencing any suffering. Even great achievers in Tibet and China inevitably experienced many hardships in their process of seeking dharma, not to mention ordinary people. However, the more adversities in practice, the more motivation we should generate. This is also a way to promote our realms of practice. If there are no adversities at all, an easy, smooth practice journey can sometimes lead to retrogression. Hence, if we want to be true practitioners, we must follow the spirit of the conquerors of the past and try our best to overcome whatever difficulties we encounter so that we may carry out the great cause of practicing Dharma in this life. This vow must be made silently in your mind.
Thank you so much. So do you agree that the happiness and the suffering are inseparable?
I think so. I think I can agree with that. There,
Okay.
It goes like it follows that story we just passed by, right? Like, 7 days of raining grain and clothes, and then raining earth down to destroy the population. So it reminded me of that story, which makes sense.
How about in real life, in your own life?
I think it's true in real life too, because it's hard to be like emotionally, it's hard to be like, you have to reach a, you don't, I think that in real life, you don't understand happiness if you've never experienced sadness either. So in that regards, you do need both in order to.
That's an excellent point to look at it, as excellent aspect to look from. Yeah. So what happens if we are full of hopes and fears, try to control our happiness and the suffering? What will happen?
I think we'll be frustrated because it's not something within our control.
Right, it's more suffering only. Yeah, pretty much. This is quite good. Any more comments, thoughts on this one? Anyone, including Joe? Pay attention. We talked about this. The dharma of transcending the samsara of birth and death can be found only in Buddhism. So the Buddha was the only one who taught the path for liberation out of samsara, right? So that's why we pick up the Buddhism, because anything else within the samsara still within that cyclic existence, and does not last. It's just wouldn't last. It's impermanent. Okay. Let's move on. Jeff?
Excellence and mediocrity are impermanent too. However authoritative and eloquent you may be, however erudite and talented, however strong and skillful, the time comes when those qualities decline. Once the merit you have accumulated in the past is exhausted, everything you think is contentious and nothing you do succeeds. You are criticized from all sides. You grow miserable and everybody despises you. Some people lose whatever meager advantages they once had and end up with nothing at all. This phenomena is not only seen around us, but also in history. To give an example, Liu Bui, the prime minister of the Qin state, pushed his son Yingzhen of Qin to ascend the throne. He became the regent to Yingzhen and regarded himself as the uncle to the king. He was such a dictator above all others, except for the king. After his involvement in a rebellion against Liao group, Lu Bui was stripped of his post. For fear of being killed by the king of Qin, he committed suicide by drinking poisoned wine. In the worldly life, such examples are too numerous to list. Unfortunately, while impermanence is playing in front of our eyes, many people are blind to it and do not use the word impermanence in their lives, let alone use it in their practice. The manifestations of impermanence are varied. Not only people in good shape become bad, people in bad shape can also turn into good status. For instance, many people once considered cheats and liars with neither talent nor common sense later find themselves rich and comfortable, trusted by everyone, and esteemed as good, reliable people. As the proverb says, aging frauds take pride of place.
Thank you, Jeff. Do you have any comments here or questions?
Well, I think this, again, these stories all kind of reinforce the fact that everything is impermanent. If you're rich and wealthy, it may be gone before you realize it. It may be gone and you become something else in the next life. That the only thing that seems to help make all this work is accumulating merits and being aware that everything is impermanent.
Excellent. Thank you. This story is a little tricky because historically there were different versions about the Lu Buwei, the relationship between Lu Buwei and it says one version says this Yin Zhen was his son, but Yin Zhen appeared to be the son of the Qin emperor at that time. So Lu Buwei gave like one of his wives. He had many to the king. So so here it says regarded him as the uncle to the king. That's why, because he was not officially the father. And then Khenpo used two stories. The other one is a Geshe from Tibet, and he was like illiterate when he was in his hometown, and he did not want to live a life like that, so he went to India. Tibetans, a lot of Tibetans go to India to study Buddhism, right? Follow Dalai Lama, and then he come back years later and become a Geshe. And Geshe is like Galupa's Khenpo kind of title. It's like you have to earn it, and it's like a degree, a Buddhism degree. You have to earn it. So and then so when he was in the village, he was like despised by many people, and people just like didn't think he was anything. But once he got his Geshe degree, he come back and everybody lined up to greet him and like regarded him, show their respect to him, all that. This is like just the status change, right? So excellence and the mediocrity are impermanent. That's the point. And then the other story is also a historic story. Liu Bang. So he was an emperor of the first emperor of Han Dynasty. Han Dynasty lasted for a long time in Chinese history. So he was the first emperor and established the entire kingdom. And then before he became the emperor, he was quite famous for his all sorts of like bad behavior. One of those hooligans or those like those rocks, and how bad he was like his opponent Xiang Yu at that time caught his father as a hostage and threatened to him, says, "I'm going to kill your dad." And then Liu Bang replied like, okay, and Xiang Yu said, "I'm going to kill your dad and eat his meat." And Liu Bang replied, "I would share a bowl with you." So showed he's really careless about his father's life. But later he became the emperor. So, and of course everybody, listened to him. This is, it's not about the person's quality is more like social status change, like how it changed, like it's very impermanent. You would still think he's the bad guy, but his social status changed dramatically. Okay, anything else over here? So this excellence and the mediocrity change. This is talking about the worldly people, like you know, regular people. And then the second part talking about the monks. And this is the second part, and we have Irene.
Sure. Excellence and mediocrity are impermanent too, the otherworldly people. As the saying goes, in old age, sages become pupils, renunciates amass wealth, preceptors become heads of families. These are also manifestations of impermanence. In old age, sages become pupils. Some people with certain realizations remain in retreat when they are young and do not talk to anyone for years. But when they reach old age, they stop practicing and start to listen to and contemplate on dharma and seek knowledge. In fact, this is not good. When you are young, you should listen to and contemplate on dharma as much as possible. And when you grow old, you should focus on meditation. Patrul Rinpoche said, practicing in their youth, but listening to dharma in their old age do not benefit oneself, only resulting in mockery by others. In old age, renunciates amass wealth. People who early in life renounced all worldly activities and was only interested in practicing dharma may be found busily piling up riches and provisions at the end. A 100-year-old monk got married. Another one with 70 years of monkhood also got married in his 90s. In old age, preceptors become heads of families. Others start out teaching and explaining the dharma, but end up as hunters, thieves, or robbers. Learned monastic preceptors who in their youth kept all the Vinaya vows may in their old age beget many children. Lama Rinpoche's early teacher. Conversely, some people spend the first half of their lives as butchers, hunters, and prostitutes, doing nothing but creating negative karmas. But in the second half of their lives, they develop a true mind of renunciation and attain enlightenment through wholehearted practice. Even if they do not attain enlightenment, they are converted to Buddhism and will be reborn in a pure land after death.
Okay, any comments, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the slide is referring to like the stories in the text about the monks who have been practicing for so many years and then getting married and having children well late into their age. I thought that was interesting and also a really great example of impermanence and kind of reinforcing the lessons from the previous slides about just but impermanence as a whole and just well, I think mostly, I mean, what I'm getting from those stories and from this slide is that I think even just from previous practice that we need to be consistent and diligent with our practice and constantly self-evaluate and analyze ourselves, because even if we're practicing for so many years and we can still fall victim to all these kind of worldly desires and kind of feed into this illusion that we think is reality. And it's very relatable for today, because we're taught to attach so much meaning to wealth and status and money and our thoughts about wealth, status, and money. But when we like feed into this, we move further away from reality and what's true.
Right.
and we move further away from that right view, which I think that was mentioned in the text. And from my understanding, it's basically seeing reality that's completely stripped of all these concepts and notions and beliefs that we learn throughout our lives.
Yes.
So it's so easy to fall back into that. Even as we're practicing, it's so important to like constantly be aware of those things and to view things with clarity and without assigning all these meanings that we're taught. And I don't think that we need to live like this ascetic life and be monks in order to achieve this clarity. I think it's okay to gain things like wealth and status, but it's important to not be blind to its impermanence and to make sure that our lives and our practice aren't guided by these impermanent things. And again, that requires you to be constantly self-evaluating and analyzing ourselves and our beliefs. And it's important to just be diligent with it, because just in the stories in the text about monks spending their entire lives practicing and end up kind of moving away from their practice.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed your sharing of your thoughts. It's exactly hitting the point is that we have to constantly reflecting on our own thoughts and our own behavior and keep this mind of renunciation. Otherwise, it's just a habit is so strong with a moment of neglection of our consciousness, everything can easily go wrong. And I cannot believe the 70-year-old monkhood can be like thrown away instantly. Even the 100-year-old get married, and even Nyingma Rinpoche's early teacher. That was like an interesting story as told by Khenpo. Nyingma Rinpoche is Khenpo's root guru, right? And he was highly enlightened. And then one of his early teachers, he learned precepts from this other monk. But when Nyingma Rinpoche became like a really famous in their area, he went back to visit his teacher, and it turned out his teacher had many children already, got remarried. But then Nyingma Rinpoche still regarded him as his teacher, so paid him prostrated to this layperson then. And this layperson prostrated back to Nyingma Rinpoche because Nyingma Rinpoche was really highly achieved. Everybody respected him. So they are kind of like prostrating to each other. So it will be quite a thing to see. So that shows how much Nyingma Rinpoche appreciates the teaching from his early teacher, even though he denounced his monkhood, right? So, and show his gratitude. So, right, the preceptors. So those are the monks who actually follow the precepts, like those 70-year-old monkhood. I think this is great, and I really appreciate Aaron's sharing. Made it really clear. Any other thoughts from anyone else?
One thing I would like to add something.
Yeah.
I know sometimes these stories can get us maybe sometimes disappointed, right? How hard it is. One other example is there's actually very famous figure in the late Chinese history in the Ming Dynasty. That's about like 500 some years ago. This guy achieved in every realm, right? He has his own theory, militarily he led greatly too. And he has lots of students to follow. It's basically their students can consider him Confucius. Later on, all his thoughts were spread to countries like Japan, and many people in other countries respect him. So great achievement. But in his 50s, he get back to a monastery where there is a room. He was very curious to get in that monastery. After actually pleading many times, the monks agreed to open. He actually found himself. That's the previous life of himself. There's some records, some few verses on the wall showing that it's predicted that he's coming back to see himself. And then that guy, the previous life, was the head of that monastery. And then on one hand, you can see somebody like a practitioner in his like next lives. They have lots of power to achieve things. But if you compare with the ultimate liberation and achievements, that's not really what the Buddhism is looking at. It's more worldly achievements. So that's, on one hand, it can be an example of, the good things, the power of practice. On the other hand, it could be almost like a failure of an example, right? A head of monastery not able to get into the Pure Land and continue his Buddhist study, but back to the world, did some, just almost like all the worldly achievements. That's really not the point to compare, because again, it's like karma. You never know. You never know. Try not to be the Sherlock Holmes to try to solve this complicated case, right? We're not able to. One of the very safe thing to do is to see it as pure, just like Lama Rinpoche, Fong gave this example. You never know by giving birth, by getting married and get many children, is that a sign of failure for you to blame, or just a sign to liberate you further? Because if you do want to liberate, you see everything as pure. If you don't see everything, every single thing is pure, you're not liberated, right? Even if, like, I'm a Buddhist, right? A Buddhist identity, that's a burden. That's ultimately, right? Anyways, I think that it's very safe to see when we look at, on one hand, if we want to enhance our own practice, I think it is okay to make it more strict, right? Don't do those things like that guy. But on the other hand, if somebody else did it, you can see this is Buddha just showing me this message. I think only through that way, that's the best way to use it.
Thank you, Oliver. Yeah, for the clarification. Somebody else? Was there somebody else talking? Okay. Yeah, it's always useful when we view other people, and sometimes we may think that their behavior is not in line with Dharma. We don't know what they really think and what their mind is. We cannot read their mind. And there may be like really highly achieved people and who can do anything without break the precepts. But it's always safe just to look on our own fault than to point fingers to other people's fault, right? So I think that's what Oliver is trying to say, and what Aaron was also talking about. Okay, let's move on. We have a few more slides. So who is next? Aaron.
Excellence and mediocrity are impermanent too, the otherworldly people. However, relying on the blessings of supreme subjects such as the Guru, you might feel slightly disenchanted with samsara, develop a vague determination to be free of it, and take on the semblance of a serious student of Dharma to the point that ordinary folk are quite impressed and want to be your patrons and disciples. But at that point, unless you take a very rigorous look at yourself, you could easily start thinking you really are as other people see you, puffed up with pride, You get completely carried away by appearances and start to think that you can do whatever you want. You have been completely tricked by negative forces. Please be aware that Patrul Rinpoche's preliminary practice is full of pith instructions. During my preaching, I may not explain them very clearly due to time limitations. If you read these Vajra words over and over again and recite a passage every day like Dilgo Jinsei Rinpoche, you will certainly gain great benefits for your continuum over time. Nowadays, some fake Tibetan monks brought up quite some negative impacts in Han area of China. Without dharma in their minds, they are greedy for fame and money and have no intention to benefit sentient beings. The other day, a person said to me, "Some of you Tibetan tulkus are unreasonable, blah, blah." I immediately retorted, "Some of you Chinese lay practitioners are unreasonable too, because the prerequisite for following a guru must be through mutual observation. You cannot pick up just anyone like a hungry dog picks up a piece of meat as soon as it is spotted."
All right. Have you met someone like that? Hope not.
And I mean, hopefully not. Yeah. I mean, but like I think this last passage, like, you know, how it talks about, early on, one of the things we were cautioned to do was finding a good guru, to take time to find, someone that, we knew could teach us in the right way. And that sort of is related to this, the hungry dog picking up the first piece of meat that they find. A lot of people get like very excited when they're newly exposed to something that, they're interested in. And and then just practice like these people who lose their way, how they began to sort of believe their own hype. They've lost touch with why they're, studying the Dharma teachings. It's not for themselves, it's for everyone else.
Right. I myself actually met such a person before I joined our group. I went through quite some searching. For that group, they also use Buddhism as the propaganda, and they teach meditation. But if you want to, they also sell like a really expensive mala beads and all those like stuff, or they charge you money for going to meditation session, all that. I was poor at that time, actually. I figured I couldn't even afford, but plus I thought that was wrong too. So it didn't go through very long, only a couple months maybe. So it was a good thing. So there are people, this person was actually in US, but there are more people like that in China. And this is, again, talk about bad behaviors of the monks. Some people they do want to teach some Dharma, but then sometimes they get carried away. So always look inside on yourself, inspect yourself, and that's the most safe way. Any other comments over here? Anything else? I think it's more for monks, so it's also for us too. So let's go on to the next one. Let's see who else. So should we go to Oliver? Are you there? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So taking a low place, is that the right page?
Yes.
And analyze one's own thought. Of course, you need to pay attention to your behavior until you attain a sublime bodhisattva level. And otherwise, no appearance, whether good or bad, can ever last before vanishing all self-centered beliefs. and the arousing of wisdom and egolessness. You should meditate constantly on death and impermanence and analyze your own thoughts. As a practitioner, you do not need much fame or wealth. Just the basic life necessities are sufficient. So always take the lowest place and act in accordance with the Dharma. Patrul Rinpoche once said, only by practicing Dharma in tune with the Dharma can one promote the Dharma and benefit sentient beings. However, some people are too shameless to even realize that they are not good. And they keep boasting in front of others how great they are. What a shame. The true eminent monks and masters, or those who have actual realm of practice, never praise themselves, but only observe their own thoughts. They cultivate dissatisfaction with samsara and desire for liberation, train themselves to become peaceful, disciplined, and conscientious, constantly develop a sense of poignant and deep sadness at the thought of transitoriness and all compounded things, of all compounded things, and the sufferings of samsara with the faith in three jewels and the guru, like Jetson Milarepa in a rock cave in a desert land. My sorrow is unrelenting. Constantly I yearn for you, my teacher, Buddha of the three times. Great.
Great. I want to give a few comments, just brief comments.
Yeah, just I think a little bit like what I just in the last slides, the discussion. I think take a low price, view others, right, as pure. Right, they are all Buddha, they are all Bodhisattvas, right? It's myself that need practice. On certain sense, this is maybe a little from little tantric. See our theory, everything like we're in a dream, right? We, I think, repeatedly emphasize this idea. And of course, first is to know it, and then through analytical, we gradually know it's true. And then of course, is the practice that let us see it, right? Bring us right, or bring it right in front of us. Once in that state, we know it's a dream. But logically, if that's a dream, then we made everything up, right? It is ourselves that has made everything up. Right? And then the nature of ourself is nothing different than Buddha. So through this logic, everything is pure, even if it is, you see all these violations or even those killings. I know this can be a little high level.
Too high, Oliver.
But just put that logic in mind, right? Let's plant the seeds right now. We don't have to go too deep in that, but right, at least this kind of overturn, if that's the right word, right? The habitual way of thinking that we usually have. Okay, that's it for now. Thank you.
Okay, great. Keep a pure mind, pure version, pure vision, pure view. Okay. I think there are two more slides. So I'll go for this one. Consequence of a moment of wrong thought. Faith and renunciation are the two fundamental roots of Buddhism. According to Kadamba, there are four main causes of faith. The first one is to follow qualified gurus. Second, to be close to good practitioners. Third, to practice impermanence. And fourth, to read as many sutras as possible. We must also practice accordingly in real life. Unless you maintain this experience constantly, there's no knowing where all the constantly changing thoughts that crop up will lead. There was once a man who, after having a feud with his relatives, took up the dharma and became known as Galantamba, the practitioner. He learned to control energy and mind and was able to fly in the sky. One day, watching a large flock of pigeons gathering to eat the offering food he had put out, the thought occurred to him that with an army of as many men, he could exterminate his enemies. He failed to take this wrong thought on the path. And as a result, he finally returned to his homeland. He became commander of an army. Hence, sometimes a single wrong thought can result in terrible consequence. Emperor Shunzhi also said in his words of ordination, this is Qin Dynasty Emperor, how could my purple kasaya be replaced by a yellow robe? All because of a single moment of wrong thought then. Originally a monk in the Western Pure Land, why am I now reborn in an imperial family? This story is this emperor, he thought he was a monk in the Western Pure Land. He regarded and he was never interested in ruling the country in Qin Dynasty, and then he went to be ordained when he was still the emperor. But then he was yellow robe means only the emperors can wear the yellow robes, right? And the purple kasaya was the monk's purple kasaya. So he did not want to wear the yellow robe, but rather he wants to wear his purple kasaya because his previous life he was a monk. So and also this Galantamba, the practitioner, and also he changed his direction of practice and he was able to fly. It was said actually Milarepa can also fly in the sky because of the realization. So it's quite high levels of realization, and then just because of the moment of wrong thought, he became a commander of an army. There is another story about the Chongzhen emperor. This is slightly different. When Chongzhen emperor's previous life, when he died, he was a monk. He always dreamed to be an emperor, and when he died as a monk, his master told his fellow practitioners to, drag him behind a horse until all his flesh is torn into pieces and gone. And his fellow practitioners felt it was too cruel, so they didn't do it, and instead they just buried it. And that resulted in the next lifetime he became the emperor, and then his entire country was overturned by rebellions, and he was forced to hang himself in Beijing. That little garden is still there. I don't know if that tree was still there. So that is the story of Chongzhen emperor. He was a good practitioner, but he always dreamed to be the emperor. So he did become an emperor, but because his karma remained like negative karma remained, so that's why he got that consequence. That story was told by Master Xuan Hua. So this is that one. This one, I think I'll go this one too. I'll go through this one too. This is a quite interesting story about learning is an endless process. So consequently, you should all observe yourself frequently during practice and try to transform your mind and use it for enlightenment. For the moment, thanks to your teacher and your spiritual companions, you might have a superficial feeling for the Dharma, but bearing in mind that what a short time any one person's sentiment lasts, free yourself with the Dharma while you can, and resolve to practice as long as you live. Regarding practice as long as you live, it reminds me of a story of Su Shi, who loved to read since childhood. He was smart and talented with photographic memory. He could recite every word of an article once he read it. After several years of hard work, he was already a very knowledgeable man. One day, he wrote a couplet after drinking and ordered his servants to put it up at the front gate. It was written, "Read all books in the world, know every word on earth." That was his couplet. And then this old lady come up and say, "Oh, I heard your stories that you know every word on the earth. I have this book. Could you read it to me?" And then Sushi opened the book. He did not recognize any single word in the book, and he was he was upset. And then he wanted to erase the couplet on the door. And then the old lady said, like, "Just wait a minute. I have a better idea." So she told him, like, just add 2 words in front of it. So she changed it to aspired to read all books in the world, strive to know every word on earth. So Sushi was very quite arrogant, but if it's changed in this way, so you can see immediate the learning inspiration. So this old lady also admonished him earnestly, "Young man, learning is an endless process." So therefore, in our study, we should also remember that learning is an endless process, and we should never be complacent or satisfied with just a little progress. Everyone should ponder on the above truths carefully and deeply. If you reflect on the numerous examples given here, you will have to doubt that nothing from the highest states of existence down to the lowest hells has even a scrap of permanence or stability. Everything is subject to change. Everything waxes and wanes. So the highest states of existence is, the highest heaven level, and then the lowest hells is the hells. So any questions on this part? Just inspire us this practice. Not only just always examine ourselves and practice all the time, lifelong. Right, and my time is a little over. We are not going to do meditation. So any questions for the entire lesson? Any more comments, questions? So speak up now or keep your silence forever, huh? All right. So we can always discuss in the WeChat group. Let's do the dedication.
By this accumulation of merit, may I obtain all-seeing omniscience. May all faults be defeated. The whirling, turbulent waves of birth, aging, sickness, and death from this ocean of samsara, may I liberate beings. Just as the Bodhisattva Manjushri attained omniscience, and Samantabhadra too, all these merits now I dedicate to train and follow in their footsteps. As all the victorious Buddhas of past, present, and future praise dedication as supreme, so now I dedicate all these roots of virtue for all beings to perfect good actions. Om Aham Vaja Guru Padma Sudhe Om.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. See you
Thank
next
you.
week.
Thank you.